Long Trump speeches are nothing new, but tonight's could have a twist. In today's White House briefing, Caroline Leavitt urged people to tune in, saying the president will show newly declassified material that supports claims of foreign interference in the 2020 election. Let me know online if you're going to be watching and if you've got any questions, like this next reporter.
Around the nation are anticipating your big announcement on Thursday night regarding election machines and integrity. Can you give us sort of a sneak peek about what to expect and tell the audience?
Well, I'd rather save it. It will concern that subject, and we'll have a couple of other things to say also.
Watch,
but I'd rather save it, but it's really big news. It's really, really big news. And our country has to shape up. But that's what we're going to be talking about Thursday is it doesn't get bigger, because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. We'll be discussing other things too, but it's going to be a very big announcement.
Well, despite how big the primetime address is, some networks are refusing to broadcast it. Democrats have been urging just that, and according to the Reuters news agency, some Trump officials worry the intelligence could be misleading. Donald Trump falsely asserted the 2020 election was rigged. He lost to Democrat Joe Biden. He also falsely claimed mail-in balloting is rife with fraud, voting machines are vulnerable, and non-citizen voting widespread. Courts and recounts found no evidence of large-scale fraud. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says Trump is scared to death he'll lose the midterms, so he's trying to change the subject.
Donald Trump's election speech tonight is not about the election Trump lost 6 years ago. It is a threat against the election he is afraid to lose this November. Trump won't expose anything of substance about 2020. He'll just echo the same stale, baseless, pathetic lies he's repeated for 6 years. Trump has given up on winning over hearts and minds. Now he's focused on rigging rules and purging voter rolls. Instead of changing course on their deeply unpopular agenda, Trump and the GOP have launched a coordinated, multi-front campaign to subvert the 2026 elections.
Washington Bureau Chief Ines Paul will follow the speech with us. We don't jump on every Trump speech. Sometimes we only show parts. But why are we broadcasting this one, Ines?
Yeah, it's actually highly disputed here in the United States within the major networks, and a couple don't broadcast the speech live because they say it will just revisit disputed claims about the 2020 election rather than really giving us something new or something major, what normally is covered in these addresses to the nation. We decided to cover this speech because it was, as told from many people, from Donald Trump himself, but also from Caroline Leavitt, his speaker. I was in the White House this morning, and she also said this will be a major speech. So we are here to listen to it, and then, of course, to analyze it afterwards, and kind of maybe dismantle some of his not so true claims he will be making. We shall see, but we are here to watch it and to analyze it for our viewers around the world.
The speech is expected or meant to start right now, but while we wait for it to start, what do you expect him to go into? What do you expect him to say?
Well, we've heard that also from Chuck Schumer, but also from others, that he will talk about voter fraud. He will probably, or he's expected to suggest something more seriously than he has before. Or at least that's what Caroline Leavitt also kind of said this morning. He will kind of give us some proof, some new information we haven't had yet. That's definitely something we will have an eye on. And then, of course, he will probably also talk about voter machines. This is kind of one of his favorite topics. We shall see if he tries to...
Well, let's cut in because Trump has begun his address.
That our country is safer, stronger, and far wealthier than it has ever been before. We are doing great. Less than 2 years ago, we inherited an economic and social disaster. After the worst inflation in 48 years, the wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, including criminals of all types, and 11,888 murderers, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore. 2 years ago, our country was dead. Now, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. America is respected like we have never been respected before. We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars, like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job-creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nation's policy, because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov, this will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to trumpaccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is 0. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide, with the murder rate at its lowest level since 1900, or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed, because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure, one where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and really exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China has signed a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country, a standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job. And they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned, they couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking the FBI director to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, a long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have. In a rare move, NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they know how corrupt our system is and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses. They use our public multi-billion-dollar in value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody, and it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to unite us, not to divide us. This should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of notifying the states whose election data was compromised by the People's Republic of China and many others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of Homeland Security will hold a briefing to outline his department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states, and we are committing to fix it. And we're also committing to be working with those states and local jurisdictions to help them fix and patch known technical vulnerabilities before the midterm elections. We have very important elections coming up. We want those elections to be honest. I've also ordered DHS to notify every state about non-citizens on their voter rolls and direct them to remove all ineligible voters from the lists immediately. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat because your policies are so bad and your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo voter ID. How simple is that? Could I have your photo, please? Photo voter ID. All voters must provide proof of citizenship. Are you a citizen of our country, please? And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel if you're going away on business or vacation. These reforms are urgently needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
US President Donald. That was US President Donald Trump. I've got Richard Walker here with me, DW's Chief International Editor. Ines Paul, our Washington Bureau Chief, is also on the line. We've been listening in carefully, trying to work out what was just announced there by Trump. We've got some very interesting comments online from viewers. Some saying he's interfering with the elections again. Midterms got him spooked. Trump is going for a third term. He's going to rig the next election, was another comment. And some people are asking, where's the evidence of tempering? What documents? Why do we never see these documents? Trump just said, Ines, that we should go to whitehouse.gov to have a look at these documents. I couldn't find anything. Richard, have you stumbled upon something?
Yeah. So there has been a kind of a document dump on whitehouse.gov. So I've started scouring through. Maybe you go to Ines and I can tell you one or two things that I've identified. But yeah, there have been a set of documents released. Yeah.
Ines, what did you make of the announcement? What was just announced?
Yeah, it's funny that he said it's releasing a release of shocking vulnerabilities. I just wrote it up a little bit, and I checked the White House page as well. It is available indeed. He talked, or the page, of course, is talking about voting machines as one of his favorite topics. The White House page claims that intelligence reports show voting and ballot counting systems can be hacked by countries like Russia and China, and these pages are citing an alleged Venezuelan digital voting rigging scheme as a warning sign. He talked a lot about China and voting records, and that's actually interesting because he claims China that they stole or bought millions of American voter registration records, but they are actually publicly available. So that's definitely something we will have to have a little bit of a closer look here. But, you know, I found something. That's really funny for us Germans, I think, and I have to read that. So this is from one of the National Intelligence Council bulletins, which is made available on the White House website. I quoted here, German Chancellor Merkel almost certainly would prefer that President Trump not win re-election because of personality conflicts between the two leaders. So that's also something we will find in these documents. I'm sure we will work through over the next couple of hours and days.
You mentioned China. Some other viewers have also been pointing that out. One saying, so China might have downloaded data. This isn't new. There is no evidence of tampering. Someone asking, are we going to war with China? And another Scott Madison writing, oh, so it wasn't Russia that interfered, it was China. Gosh, so happy that his buddy Putin wasn't involved. I mean, that would be so embarrassing. Richard, what do you make of this cache of documents?
Yeah, so, I mean, there are all sorts of, like, points up in the air. We obviously are going to need more time than we have right now to sift through a lot of this information. But yeah, if you go into the documents, you do see, I mean, for instance, on China supposedly being for Biden, in one of the documents here, it does say that there's an assessment that they believe that China would prefer Biden to win, but that Russia would prefer Trump to win. And also saying that they see much stronger evidence of Russia actually actively interfering than China. In terms of China, so there are a couple of different levels of things, and obviously we're kind of, always with the proviso, we're kind of still sifting through things. This has only just been released. We've only just heard what Trump had to say. But there are kind of different levels to the allegations that are out there. Yeah. So there's one allegation which we just heard Ines referring to, that China obtained large amounts of voter data. So this is not interfering in necessarily interfering in the election process. This is not necessarily, getting involved in the voting machines or anything like that. This is actually more of a kind of a hack to get information.
And why would China do that?
Well, so this actually did come up in the report that the intelligence community put out after the 2020 election, where they kind of put out their assessment of things. And at that point, it already said, but it kind of said, it couched it a little bit. So China probably continued long-standing efforts to gather information on US voters and public opinion. So in a way, what we're maybe hearing is just a little bit more detail. Okay, well, the scale of this. China, of course, has a history of hacking against the United States, so that is pretty well documented. So this will not necessarily be a huge surprise, but it just kind of builds on information that, as far as I can tell, was already public, at least not in the same level of detail, but public, that China had this kind of intention. And then Trump said that the members of the deep state, as he put it, had worked to suppress and downplay some of the allegations about China. And I think this appears to go to the fact that this report that was released after the 2020 election by the intelligence community at that stage, there was what was called a kind of a minority view, a kind of a dissenting view within the intelligence community. So that was one of the intelligence leaders, the National Intelligence Officer for Cyber, had a little bit of a more critical interpretation of what China had been doing. So the long-standing assumption about China was that it wouldn't necessarily try to influence an election one way or the other, because it saw both parties as being pretty antithetical to what China wants. But they would try to influence issues, so the way that Taiwan is discussed in public, the way that Tibet is discussed in public, human rights, all these kind of things. And this National Intelligence Officer for Cyber at the time published a minority view, as it was called, saying that some of Beijing's influence efforts were intended to at least indirectly affect US candidates. So suggesting actually it went beyond issue interference to a greater level of attempting to influence the actual election. But still, there's a big gap between that and saying that it was active interference in an election process.
Ines, do you want to chime in?
I can't hear you now. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to know if you wanted to chime in on anything that Richard had to say there, or about the timing of this speech, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's interesting what Richard said. Of course, China wanted or wants to influence the public discourse here in the United States. Biden said that Russia, China, and Iran and other countries, of course, try to influence the public discourse. The United States are doing the same in Germany right now with the far-right party AfD. The Chancellor actually got asked by one of our colleagues just yesterday about this very topic, and our German Chancellor said, well, we hope friends don't do that, but it is known. But you know, how far goes this influence, and does it really change the outcome of elections? And there is no proof of that whatsoever. What I find from an American or from a journalist who is based here in America, even more interesting than this website, of course, we will take time to read through it. But you know, why is Donald Trump doing this? He wants to spread uncertainty. He wants really to undermine the trust from American voters in the system. And this is crucial because he is successful with that. And we have to keep in mind, in this huge country, it's sometimes coming down to really small communities of 2,500, 3,000 people. If they vote one way or the other, they can change the outcome of the election. So if he's able, with these speeches, with these announcements, they were like announced like a blockbuster news event tonight, which of course didn't happen, but something will stick with those who already believe that the system here in the United States is not working the way it should should do, and therefore he is delivering these speeches in this very moment where, you know, the polls are going down. He has terrible figures. Only 60, more or less 60% want him out of office. They don't believe in his skill set helping the economy. They voted for him to end wars. What is he doing? He started this war in Iran with no end in sight. So he's really in the corner. And this is why he delivered this speech tonight to, again, spread distrust, mistrust in democracy by the end of the day.
So do the debunked claims of election fraud still play a prominent role in American politics?
They do, of course, and you know, I mean, there is no evidence. I mean, it's looked into by hundreds of lawyers from both sides, but Donald Trump is not giving in. But that's also interesting how he started this speech today, and because, you know, there was criticism earlier today and yesterday. Ever since we know that he wanted to focus on the 2020 election, and many also Republican politicians and also voters, of course, said, "Hey, why is he still looking back to the election from 2020? Why is he not focusing on the problems this country has, like basically the cost of living, gas prices, and so on and so forth?" And therefore he started the first 3 or 4 minutes of the speech telling how great he is, that inflation went down and that everything is fantastic and that the United States is such a hot country. So he is absolutely aware of the situation of the American people, but then again, he of course moved on spreading mistrust into the voting system here in the United States.
Richard?
Yeah, so I've been trying to look up some more of the allegations that Trump came up with, and there was one that definitely caught my ear. So we were just talking about China, yeah? So the central allegation about China appears to be more of a kind of like hacking to get information rather than necessarily an influence stroke interference thing. But there was one allegation that Trump said, which really did sound like very active interference, saying that there were attempts to manufacture ballots for Joe
illegal
Biden.
ballots.
Yeah, you remember him saying that? Okay, so I've had and again, this is like just the initial scour. There may be more documents, but I found a document which is potentially what he's referring to here in the dump of documents on whitehouse.gov. And what it appears to be is an FBI report that was published in, or not published, but provided within the intelligence community in August 2020. And it does indeed allege that, well, it is essentially an intelligence report saying that a piece of intelligence had been received from a source. Yeah, and it says that the Chinese government was looking into production and export of fraudulent US driver's licenses to Chinese sympathizers in the United States in order to create tens of thousands of mail-in votes. Yeah? But I think it's quite an interesting case of where what we're looking at here is raw intelligence. So it says the source is a collaborative source with indirect access, none of whose reporting has been corroborated for less than 1 year. And then it says that the source obtained the information from an identified subsource who claimed that they obtained the information from unidentified PRC, so People's Republic of China government officials. And then it says, warning, this is an information report, not finally evaluated intelligence. Yeah.
Okay.
So, of course, we haven't had time really to look through this. We don't know the story of, you know, who looked at this, who believed it, who was skeptical about it, why they were skeptical, why they were supportive. But I think this is something that we've often seen with, if you kind of dump an intelligence document into the public domain, you read something and it sounds, oh, wow, they did this. But this is very seriously hedged, even right up front with a warning in capital letters. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is one thing that obviously journalists everywhere are going to be really digging into these documents to sort of see, okay, is it a superficial allegation here, or is there real substance to it? I'm not saying there isn't substance to this. We don't know the full story, but that's a little bit of a tell, potentially, that some of these things that may sound shocking, they could, this could have been made up by a source for any kind of reasons. Or it could be true. We don't know.
Ines, could I just come to you one more time before we wrap up the stream? Why should audiences outside the US be paying attention to this speech tonight and going through this cache of documents that have been declassified and released by the White House online?
Well, because by the end of the day, this is just the beginning of what we will experience more and more, not only for the upcoming midterms in November, but also, of course, for the upcoming presidential elections in 2.5 years. And as we just discussed over the last half an hour or so, it is by the end of the day an attack on the trust of the American people in the voting system. And if people in a democracy don't believe that their votes are counted correctly, that the system is not working, this is a huge threat, and it will not it will stick with some of the people who are following this speech or will following the news about it tomorrow. So this is more than just another speech of Donald Trump. This is the beginning of a kind of an intensified attack of democracy, I would say, here in the United States.
Richard, final words from you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the Trump would probably respond to that. Well, does that suggest that if we do find any real issues, we should just kind of shut up about them? Mm-hmm. But I think what's quite interesting is that one or two of the documents, at least one of the documents that I saw when scouring through these things so quickly, referred to exactly the point that Ines is making there, mm-hmm. that one of the threats to American democracy and to the American electoral system is the very suspicion itself about it. Mm-hmm. And whether there are genuine issues with it or not, if you manage to generate suspicion, so a foreign actor, a hostile mm-hmm. actor, if it manages to create suspicion, then that serves their purposes. Ines is obviously referring to concerns that, that Donald Trump is sowing those seeds of doubt himself for his own political purposes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, of course, we need to dig further through these documents and see how much
we sure do.
There really is.
And we have to wrap it up there. Another viewer has said there's a lot of people out there who do like the American president, what he's doing. There's a lot of people who want him to continue to be president. Richard Walker, Ines Pohl in Washington, thank you very much. I'm Ben Fazula, and thanks for joining us tonight on our live stream.
Okay, there's a lot to go through.